in a suit. You're squeezing a lot out of what we're trying to offer to you. But some of it you may not even appreciate, like the fact that 10 years from now, a lot of the people in this room are the exact same people you're going to call when you are trying to decide about a job opportunity, when you are moving to a new city and you're looking for a network. This is your crowd and you don't even realize it yet, right? And for me, some undergrad, a lot for me because of the type of grad school I went to and my grad school friends. And a lot of it is that first job group. A lot of people I know are very hooked in still with the people who they worked with in that first job, will be the network. And we really, the Tiger Network, as a relatively new arrival, you know, I'm only in my third year here, amazing, amazing group of alums. And you see some of them and you have older siblings and maybe your parents or your neighbors or maybe not, were Mizzou Tigers. But I'm telling you, wherever you go, there is a group. And nothing makes them happier than helping other Mizzou Tigers. That's so special. And you don't know it yet. I mean, I can tell you and you can appreciate it, but when you experience it and you get an opportunity simply because you went to school here and not someplace else, amazing and warm and wonderful, special. And I congratulate you on not even realizing what you were accessing, and I also challenge you to be a part of it, because you'll all graduate before you know it, and it'll be your turn to do it for somebody else, and it's really such a cool part of who we are. So we try to create these opportunities, and we challenge you to take hold of them. One of the main things, though, that I challenge you to take a hold of is the value of that network. So when you work with each other, think about who you work with, get to know the people you work with. You all do this. You want to go into sales, it's going to be all about who you know and who opens a door for you. And wherever you move and whatever company you join, think about the network, the Mizzou network, or whatever other network you have access to by virtue of your employment. Another thing that we really try to drill into you, and this would come from hopefully every professor, don't tell me if it doesn't, and also from the out of the classroom things we do, is the value of being prepared. So what does that mean, right? Well, it means you've done whatever task was given to you to do, and you certainly do. I heard a speaker, I can't remember who it was recent, I'm embarrassed to say, I can't give proper attribution, but one of the speakers I heard recently said, I never say no when someone asks me to do something. If my boss asks me to do something, the answer is yes. Now, I'm not so sure that I would give that as advice. Actually, I think of learning how to say no is a really good talent to have, and that's a life journey for me, figuring that one out. But she says that if someone respects her enough to want her to do it, that it's her obligation to say yes. And that's sort of 2 points of view on that. What I would say, if you're trying to figure out that spectrum, is if you do say yes, whether you wanted to say yes or not, you do it. And be prepared. But you also present yourself well. So you know how to do this. You look great. You're all shaking my hand. You're all looking me in the eye. You know, all those sort of subtle cues that show that you're engaged and you're here and you're present. But I wouldn't just do them when your dean walks in. I would do them all the time. I would wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, that's what I'm going to do today. That's really actually what I try and do. And I don't always succeed, but that is what I try and do, because you never know when that next opportunity is coming, when that person's going to tap you on the shoulder, when you're meeting the person who will become the entree into a network that you otherwise wouldn't have had access to, because they're impressed by you, because they like you, because they see the best of you, because that's what you've shown them. And you just don't know. So just like I say, it's never going to hurt to be looking professional. It's never going to hurt to be engaged, present, prepared, done what you're supposed to do. It's just always going to be the right thing. So I challenge you to do that. One of the things we hear regularly, you know, we have all these rock star speakers come in, and I think about you guys, and you come in and you show up and we tell you to take notes and turn your phone off and, you know, all that good stuff that makes you all look professional. But I also think to myself, when I was in my early 20s, or even late teens for some of you, and the CEO of a major company came in, I might have thought that was interesting, but it would be a little bit like watching a movie up front. Like, that's so abstract for you all to think about what your career would be like when you're 52, 55 years old. And we think it's valuable, but I also think about how much you all think, well, I could do that. Well, I would say, of course, I think you can do that. But what they all say that you absolutely can do, even at your age and even immediately, even now, and certainly when you graduate, they all say, that something came along that they weren't expecting, that they were tapped on the shoulder for an opportunity that they didn't know they were going to have. So lots of people graduate from a good school with good grades and get a good job, and 30 years later they have a good job. And then a few people are CEOs and CFOs, and what's the difference, really, right? Because I'm looking around the room and I'm telling you that you're all great and you could all do it, so what's the difference? And I think some of it's luck, right? The fact is, some people are a little luckier than others. But we just heard a speaker when we were in New York with the Tigers on Wall Street. His name's Ken Langone. He's going to be here in April with the Sire Conference. He was one of the founding investors in Home Depot. One of the wealthiest people in the United States of America. Unbelievable story. Father was an electrician. Mom was a school teacher or something like that. You know, one of those very modest beginnings to wild, crazy success. So he says, the harder I work, the luckier I get. That has been my life experience. And I don't think he made that up. I think that's one of those, you know, Ben Franklin, Shakespeare quotes that we all like to take credit for. But it's a truism that harder you work, the luckier you get. That doesn't mean you'll always be lucky, but it means you will be luckier, for sure. So they got tapped on the shoulder to do something they weren't expecting to do, and they were prepared. They were the one who got tapped because they presented themselves well, and they knew when to say yes and when to take advantage, and off they went. In my case, you know, I'm the dean of a really good college of business, but I'm a lawyer, actually, by training. I don't have a PhD in business. I was a commercial litigator. I was practicing law. I was a pretty good lawyer. I had good grades in law school. I was at a big firm. I was on a track. And I worked for a partner who had expertise, I'm totally going to put you to sleep, and I realize I've been talking for a long time, in insurance, regulatory, rate-making appeals. Yeah. Don't be jealous. It was really boring work. And so a lot of people didn't like to do it, but I actually thought it was kind of interesting, and I liked the partner. He was a good partner to work for. He was a good mentor. He let me do hard problems early. He let me have client access early. So even if the work was a little dull, I was getting a lot out of the relationship, and I was doing my best because that's what you do. And Georgia State University, I'm from Atlanta, and Georgia State University, which is a big university but in downtown Atlanta. Actually, this chapter was founded at Georgia State University. So there you go, a little circle of life there. Has a risk management and insurance department, which we don't have here in the College of Business, and they realized that they didn't have enough instruction for their insurance students on how rate making works. So they needed to hire a faculty member with expertise in rate making, and I got that job. Because a friend of mine whose husband worked at the University of Georgia, actually, which is where I went to grad school, knew one of those because I had a network and because I had mentors and because generally speaking people were nice and I was nice back, I got that call. And an academic career is strange enough, but in a business school, when you're a lawyer, that's pretty strange. And no one would have said anything to me if I'd said, it's a little risky. I don't know, I'm going to make partner at this law firm. And that might have been a beautiful and blessed life. I'd like to think it would have been. But this one was better, no doubt about it. And I'm really glad that I took the chance when I did. And what my mentor said to me, the same fellow at the University of Georgia, said, what's the worst that can happen? Right? You're 20 at the time, 26 years old, your spouse has a job, or you have no spouse yet, and you don't really have anything financially except your own well-being. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to look back and do something else. So what, right? So as long as there's a reason you take it and you can articulate it, I don't see a lot of downside, especially early, especially early. Later it gets a little harder. We can talk about that when you come back from young alum and all of that stuff. So getting tapped is lucky, but the harder you work, the luckier you get, and think about why you're getting tapped, think about the strengths and weaknesses, and make your decisions accordingly. Another thing I want you to think about is the angst that you probably feel about your first job. Everybody's really calm and relaxed about that, right? Yeah. And I'm not calm and relaxed for you. It's angsty. In fantastic markets, it's angsty. It's scary, right? You want to pick the perfect, best first job. You want to make sure that all of your hard work is in this perfect basket in that job that you tell your parents about, and you tell your friends about, and that you tell yourself about in your inner conversation, that everything you did, and you're doing a lot, led you exactly to that first job. And I want to say to you, for some of you it will be that way, and that's great, but for some of you it won't, and that's fine too. Just get a job, right? Because you don't have to marry the first person you date, and your first job doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all of your career either. So get a job, learn something, figure out what kind of environment you want to be in. Do you want to be in a top-down corporate culture and work your way up to the top? Do you want to be in a collaborative culture where everything's done by teams? Do you want to work in one of these bull pen environments and slide down a slide to get your free Coke because they do that for you when you play dodgeball on lunch break, and I'm still blown away by that? Or do you want to be in a lockstep thing where the expectations are clear because you like rules and that's what's going to motivate you is to check box? You know, learn this about yourself. And it will be a little different at work than it is in school. Even though you mimic a lot with these kinds of activities, it's okay to get that first job if it's not perfect and just learn from it. Figure out